Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Read M. My name is Emily, and today I'm going to be screaming into the void about this book because I have no one in real life to scream about it to. I just finished this book around 2 days ago, and it has still been living in my mind rent-free ever since, so I decided I have to make a dedicated discussion about this because immediately upon finishing, I looked up every single YouTube review I could find. I watched Kayla and Aaron's discussion about this immediately, the entire hour-long thing. It was amazing, and so I'm going to be splitting this up into two parts. The first part being spoiler-free, of course, and I'll let you guys know when I'm going to get into the spoilery discussion section so that you can leave if you haven't read the book yet. So first I thought I should just let you guys know what this book is about. I don't want to tell you too much because I think the fun of it, a lot of the fun of it is the discovery. So what I think you should know going into it is actually less than the synopsis tells you. I think all you should know is that it's about a man who wakes up one day from a coma and he's in some sort of like medical bay and he doesn't know where he is or who he is or anything about his past. He still remembers obviously language, he remembers some knowledge that he doesn't really know where he got it from, but he doesn't have any background as to how he got to this mysterious place. I personally think that's all you need to know. The synopsis probably tells you a bit more, but I just think that only knowing what I just told you makes the beginning of the book more fun. I would highly recommend this book to anyone who is still chasing the high of what Interstellar gave to them, of what Arrival gave to them. If you like either of those stories, the like really scientific exploration of sci-fi, I think you will definitely like this, like something from humanity's perspective but still very much about like the universe as a whole. The tone of this book is also another thing that I found especially charming and that really made it work. It's very, very funny, very like lighthearted, but it really doesn't shy away from its nerdiness as well. It talks about so many math things, so many fun physics things, so many just cool science ideas that I feel like if you're at all interested in any of that, then you will definitely enjoy this. And don't worry too much if you don't know too much about that kind of stuff because it's still written in a way that's really accessible. And even if you didn't fully understand the parts that he goes into detail about, you don't need to. Like, it's not integral to the story, it just enhances it if you think about it even more. So the last thing that I want to say before we get to the spoilery discussion is that I think this is a very good entry-level sci-fi book because it's not too hopeless. I know a lot of people who don't like to read sci-fi or like dystopian, post-apocalyptic kind of things because it's so hopeless in the depictions of the future, but I think this is a very like hopeful, safe read. Even though obviously there are things that go wrong in this book, there are scary moments. I just feel like reading this and seeing Andy Weir's writing style, you just know from the beginning that it seems like a pretty safe read. So don't worry when certain things happen that Andy Weir will betray you, that he will break your heart, because he won't. He gives the story the justice it deserves and he gives hope for like the future of the universe and humanity, and I found it very entertaining and a very nice spin on a futuristic sci-fi. I'd also say it somewhat reminded me of the movie Don't Look Up in the way that it deals with like how people on Earth would have to address a large mass scale event, but it's definitely way more hopeful than the Don't Look Up depiction. So if you like didn't like that movie but you thought you liked the idea and the premise of it, then I feel like this you would also really enjoy. Okay, so now we're gonna get to the spoilery section, so click away if you haven't read the book. Only stay if you have or if you don't care about hearing spoilers, because we're gonna talk about lots of things that happened, but definitely gonna talk about the elephant in the room. If you've read the book, you know. So bye-bye people who have not read the book. Okay, hello spoilery people. Of course, we're gonna talk about Rocky. We're gonna talk about Rocky, but first I wanna talk about the like pacing and structure and like the journey I went on while reading this. So the first 100 to 200 pages, I was very invested. I just wanted to know like what was going on with Ryland. Like he woke up, I wanted to know, like I loved the flashbacks to the past, even though they eventually got a little bit slower. I was just really enjoying like getting the inklings of knowledge, and I just felt like it was super, super fast paced up until like page 200. Then for me, pages like 200, 300, it slowed down a little bit. We went way deeper into the flashbacks and I wasn't quite as invested because it seemed so straightforward as to what the flashbacks were leading to, although we'll come back to that later because it wasn't. Then from page 300 to 350, things were picking up, and then from page like 350 on, I did not put the book down. It took me like a week to read like the first 250 pages maybe. Not because it was slow or anything, maybe towards the ending it was a little bit, but I was just really busy. But then once we got to page like 300, 350, I literally read this thing in like 2 days, like staying up late into the night because I needed to know what was gonna happen. So that was basically like my journey of reading it, but now I just want to talk about like my most shook moments because there were so many. I think obviously the very first one was when Ryland found the other ship. Like, I just was not expecting an alien story here. I was not seeing that. I was thinking about The Martian, which I actually haven't read or seen, but I just know the general like idea of that is like a lone man stuck in space, right? And I was like, I looked at the cover of this and I'm like, lone man stuck in space. So I was not expecting an alien creature, and I was not expecting such a fascinating alien creature. Now this is why I kind of suggested Arrival in the beginning spoiler-free section, but like, you know, the people in that section don't have to know that it's because of the aliens, but like the alien here reminded me of how the aliens are dealt with in Arrival, because I feel like a lot of times in sci-fi, aliens are depicted in a way that's too like human-centered. Like, I mean, they talked about it a ton in this book, but like, I don't understand why people think that life has to be based in like hydrogen, carbon, like the same stuff that we're based in. Like, just because our life functions like that, like why do you think that all life would have to function like that? Like, I don't really get it. Like, maybe I'm just not smart enough, but I just don't understand why that would be the case. Like, maybe life for life forms that aren't using like hydrogen and carbon and stuff, to us, like, we don't even recognize as life because we just like don't have the capability to recognize that. Does that make sense? Like, maybe there are living things on this planet that we can't identify as living because we somehow like don't have the senses to do that. I don't know. That's got me thinking about that, because I've just like always wondered that, like, why do people think that aliens have to like be in a similar form at all to us? So that's why I really loved this depiction of an alien and Arrival's depiction of aliens, because it's like, of course things would be like so wildly different. Like, why would they happen to be similar like in any ways at all? And this one, even the parts about them that were similar, they acknowledged that it was confusing why they're similar. Like, they wondered why they happened to think at the same speed, and they addressed it. It was probably because they think that they probably came from some common ancestor, and that was just like really interesting to think about. I would really want to know the original species, because they hinted at the fact that astrophage and humans and Iridians may have come from some sort of common ancestor that like put seedlings onto different planets. But like, and I know like obviously they wouldn't know how that happened because it was like billions and billions of years ago, but like, I'm just interested, like, what was this old ancient race? Like, what was it? I don't know. I want to know what it was. And then speaking of that, we have the Taumiba, which are unrelated. Or were they unrelated? I feel like it was like slightly different because they died from, yeah, it was unrelated because they died from nitrogen. So they couldn't have come from a species or like a common ancestor that is tolerant to nitrogen, because why would they be intolerant to nitrogen? So it's like, that was really alien life. Like, that was like, obviously everything's or alien life, it's from a different planet, but it seems like common ancestor might mean technically they're like in the same, not species, but like the same domain. Not actually domain, I know that's like a biological term, but whatever, you understand what I mean. Like, Taumiba seem to have come from a completely different source of life. So that was just interesting to think about as well. I feel like I've been rambling for much too long about the science here, so I'm gonna just talk about a few of my like favorite moments that happened. My number one favorite scene was when things started going terribly wrong and the seat started crushing Ryland after the EVA, and Rocky sacrificed himself to save him, and he was like burning and on fire and the ammonia was flooding, and then Ryland manages to save the ship after that because Rocky saved him, and then he has this whole plan on how to save Rocky, and he brings him into the airlock and then floods it with the Iridian air, burning his arm with the ammonia, and then he has to recover himself, but then he decides to invent the invention that will spray air into the airlock and like cover it with a seal, and then it'll like clean out Rocky's I forget what it was called, but he has like little like ventilation basically, and it was filled with like soot, which Ryland thought was bad and like blocking the healing from happening and like being able to like take in the elements he needs. Like, I don't really know exactly, I don't remember everything, but he thought that was like bad to have the blockage in there. But then when Rocky wakes up, he's like, why are my like vents like so like empty? And he was like, because I helped you, like it was clogging up your like vents. And he was like, that is how my body heals. and then Ryland was like, I literally just like ripped open his wounds. Like, he essentially was ripping off scabs. And he thought he was saving him and he almost killed him. Oh my god, that was like so funny. But again, it's so realistic, I feel like, because like, how would we know what this like alien life form's body does to like save itself? And my other favorite scene was when the entire lab exploded in the flashbacks. Because, I mean, I was expecting something to go wrong, because obviously you know that the two people have to die. But like, the way it happened was so insane, with Ryland just like sitting at his desk, and you see that light outside, and then I was like, okay, something's going wrong here. And then it explodes. But this explosion that he experiences in the trailer is miles away from the lab, so you don't even want to know what happened to the lab. That part was like so tense and so insane. And then of course my other favorite part was the very ending, when it comes so full circle and he's teaching the little Iridians in a classroom like he did at home, and it's just like so sweet. And like, I feel like, I mean, the ending's like kind of open-ended, like he could theoretically go back to Earth, but I don't think he ever will. Like, I just don't think that's plausible. What I was wondering though is if people from Earth will come to find him on Erid, or just go to Erid in general. Because if you think about it, it has been like 27 years, I think, since the original events on Earth. But to Ryland, it's only been, I forgot, like 16 or 13. It's been less because of time dilation. So he has longer than he thinks, because Earth, it's been longer. So like, they've been making more progress while it's been less time for him. However, what I'm wondering is, because he got the news at the end of the book that Earth survived, or I mean, I guess he technically doesn't know if Earth survived, but he knows that the sun has been restored. So it means that like, at least someone on Earth had to have survived to have fixed that problem. So like, at least some scientists have still survived, but I'm assuming at least like, I don't know, I would hope like at least a third of the population survived, right? Like some people did, and there's enough scientists. Now that they solved the problem, and they have astrophage, what is stopping them from going to Erid themselves? That's my question. Because wouldn't scientists want to know more about Erid? I mean, they have the information from the beetles, so like, they knew what they needed to, but like, if we discovered an alien planet, I think the first thing that would happen is people would want to do more research on it. They would want to go there, right? So like, what is stopping them from building a spaceship to go there? Because the only thing that's stopping humans now from going to places that are outside of our solar system is fuel, it seems like. Like, rockets clearly work fine, like the exterior is fine. It's just the amount of time it would take and the amount of fuel you would need. Because we don't have a fuel that would be able to make us go fast enough to get anywhere before everyone on the crew died. But in this version, there is enough. It only took around 5 years for them to be able to get to Erid and Tau Ceti. So like, yes, they were in comas, but that was just for like logistics of like them not killing each other or whatever. But I feel like if people volunteered for a non-suicide mission, it would be less bad for them to be going 5 years in a spaceship. But like, it only took 5 years because they had astrophage, which is the like most efficient fuel ever created. So it's like, now they have astrophage, can't they just go to Erid? So like, in my mind, maybe that would happen. Maybe the humans would go. Obviously they can't like go into Erid with a spaceship because it wouldn't function in their atmosphere. But like, they could go nearby, and I'm sure the Iridians would like notice, because the humans would know that they can't see, so they would like produce some sort of sound, and they would realize that there was a spaceship there, and they could work something out. I mean, they got Ryland onto their planet, so like, I just feel like in my version of events, the humans will eventually come visit Erid, and Ryland will be reunited with people and work on the spaceship a little bit and like do even more research. And then he can also teach his little kids. Maybe some of the astronauts that come on the plane were some of Ryland's original students. I feel like that would be cute. Okay, I also want to talk about like the moment that I knew that this book was like my level of nerdiness, and I was excited to see like how into detail it would go about like the math and physics and science, was when Ryland woke up and the computer said, "What's the cube root of 8?" to ask to see if his brain was like still working properly after waking up from the coma. And he answered 2 times e to the 2i pi over 3, which is the same thing as 2. And the computer said incorrect. And he was just saying that to like test if the computer was actually like using like a calculator or like knowledge, or if it was just programmed to like only have one answer based on like what he said. And that was when I knew. Literally my friend the other day sent me this meme about like basically this kind of same thing, and she hasn't even read the book yet. So like, we knew this book was meant for me once I saw that. Okay, we also need to talk about Rocky and Ryland's interaction. I'm just fascinated about the idea of aliens, and I love how they struggle to communicate here. Again, this reminded me of Arrival in the sense that they had to like learn how to communicate from scratch. Like, I feel like people underestimate how different an entire other life form would be. Like, how do you even assume that they would understand anything you're doing? Like, in this case, he's incredibly lucky that Rocky can see using his hearing. Like, he can see it all. Maybe some other life forms wouldn't even see using hearing. Maybe they have some sort of sense that we don't even possess. Like, I don't know if this makes any sense. Like, we can smell, which is basically just tasting from afar, which that also broke my brain for a second there. I was like, that is weird to think about. It's just long range tasting. But Iridians can't even do that. So it's like, we have a sense that they don't have. So it would be possible for another being to have a sense that we don't have. Like, we also obviously can hear, but we can't hear the way that they hear. So we can't see with our ears, but they can see with their ears, and we can taste with our noses. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know, it's interesting. But I feel like customs are so different that communicating with an alien is not as simple as charades. Although in this case, it did begin with charades, and I thought that was so adorable when he was like, he would wave to Rocky, and then Rocky would wave back, and then he'd wave again, and then he'd wave again. He would just wave back and forth a million times because Rocky didn't understand that it's like a one-time thing you're supposed to be doing. I also loved the way that he decided how to learn Rocky's language. He just made the Excel sheet on the computer. He would have it scan and record each note, and then he could assign it a word into the Excel sheet, and it would like show him the translation. I was like, that's just such a logical way of doing that. It's a very realistic way. You could plausibly do that, and that was just like so fascinating to me. I feel like though, I don't really believe the fact that Ryland could have understood his language that quickly, like without the computer's help. Like, I feel like in this book, they said like after a few weeks or months, he could just like understand Rocky, and I'm like, okay, I can understand Rocky understanding him, because Rocky's brain is basically like a permanent memory device, so of course he can remember everything. But like, how could Ryland understand just like musical notes and like chords being played meaning words? Like, I feel like he has to have like perfect pitch in order to understand that. Like, if someone doesn't have musical knowledge, like I could not tell you if someone played a musical note that was like an A sharp or something. Like, I could not tell you that. So how would I remember what each one was? I don't know. I feel like that part was a little bit unrealistic, but the computer part was very interesting. I also loved the way that Rocky spoke, like when he was like, amaze, fist my bump, and he would say like a question, he'd be like, who are you? Question. And it made me laugh. I also loved that Rocky's planet uses base 6 and it uses different symbols, because obviously they're not going to use the same number symbols as us. And why would they use base 10 when they have 6 fingers on 2 hands? So it's like, of course they would use base 6. And I just really like that, because again, I just feel like a lot of times people underestimate how different cultures would be between literal different planets and life forms. Like, why would anything be similar at all? There's no reason it would be. And I loved how it came full circle at the end, with the last chapter being in their number system, and that Ryland now thinks using their number system. It was just like a very full circle moment. Okay, I'm gonna put the book down now because my hand is like getting tired, but I'm gonna continue talking. Let's talk about other things that in the science that I was just like pondering. This morning, I literally microwaved something, and it reminded me about the fact when he said that the reason we can like see into microwaves is because the holes are a size where microwaves are too big to pass through them, but light is not too big to pass through them. And that's just like, I never thought about that. I never thought about light as a wavelength, as an object, as something that we're seeing as a wavelength. Does that even make sense? Because, okay, this is the part that really blew my mind the most and made me want to do this entire discussion, was the difference between hearing and seeing for Iridians and for humans. So the way that we see is we can detect light, like reflected light, right? So that means we can see things that are quite far away. We can see stars that are billions of kilometers away. Now, the way that Iridians see is through their ears. They can hear, I guess, like vibrations. I don't really know exactly. It didn't explain, like, they don't make a sound to like echo back to them. They can just like hear using sound somehow. I don't know. I don't know if I completely understood that, but let's just say, for the sake of this, like, they can just hear everything around them, right? So if sound waves can pass through something, they can see that thing using their ears. So there's a difference between what humans can see and what Iridians can see. We can see things that are super far away because light can travel that far and bounce back to us. They cannot see things that are that far away. However, they can see things that are obstructed by something in which light does not pass through. So like, if there was a cardboard box, they can see inside the box because sound waves can pass inside and outside of a box, but light waves cannot. And it's just like, okay, like, it's just weird to think about, because to me, that seems insane to be able to see inside of a closed object. But to them, seeing something billions of kilometers away is insane. Like, we can tell that there is an object billions of kilometers away from us, and we just don't think about how incredible that is. Like, I'm sorry, but isn't that literally insane? That is literally insane. And then the way that this impacts the inventions that we have is also insane. Because for us, all of our like cameras and like ways that we can like scan things and see things is through light, like simulations, right? So like digital cameras, it will like scan light. Okay, again, I'm not like super expert here, but like it'll like scan light and then reproduce the light back to us using like pixels, right? But in order for Rocky to see something, he can create an object that interprets the light output, because well, first of all, he'd never thought about that before, but when he hears that we can see using light, he was like, oh my god, that's such an interesting concept. So he could create something that would scan the light that like humans see with, and then reproduce that as a textured output. So then he could hear the texture, which is basically seeing using hearing. And that got me thinking, is it possible for us to invent something that would then do the opposite? Can we somehow create a device that would hear textures and then reproduce it as light for us to see? I don't know if this would be useful because we could just see the object that we're trying to hear and then see again. But like, if we did that, in theory, could we see in the dark? Do you know what I mean? It would be black and white because there, or maybe, oh wait, would it even be black and white though? I don't know if that would work at all, because I guess it could. If you assigned a like shade or color to the levels of height of like texture, I feel like it could work, because there's no color obviously if you can't see using light. Like they don't even know what color is, like Rocky and Iridians. So like you couldn't have color. So they don't even know like what white and black is. Like it couldn't even be black and white color, but I feel like you could artificially assign that in the light producing thing for like humans to see, like the different levels of texture. So I feel like this could work. Like if we did that, could we see into cardboard boxes? Like, okay, I have no idea how you'd make the technology to be able to like hear textures, but I feel like theoretically it could be possible. I definitely think that the changing what is seen to light is possible. Like that is definitely possible. But then I don't know if the original being able to see the textures is possible. But I feel like it has to be. I feel like it is. And I'm just curious about that. Like, is Andy Weir gonna like inspire some scientific change here? Or is that already a thing? Is this already an invention? Like, please let me know, because I want one. If this is an invention, I would like one right now. I feel like that's a plausible thing and I want it to exist. So please someone let me know if that does exist. If it doesn't, like, let's talk to Hank Green. Let's get him in on this, because I want to know. I've been talking for way too long about all of it. I hope that someone is still watching, and if you are, please let me know down below if you have any other like weird scientific wonderings from this book, and let me know also if you guys have read The Martian or Artemis or seen the movie or anything, and if I should read those ones too, because after reading this, I really want to read his other books, especially The Martian, and I want to see the movies, and I really want to see this movie when it comes out. Apparently it's starring Ryan Gosling, and I'm like, don't know how I feel about that. Like, I feel like I was imagining a more nerdy, funny guy, but I feel like he'll pull it off. I mean, he was just in First Man, wasn't he? So it's like a little weird he's doing multiple space movies at the same time. Well, at the same time, but like very close together. I don't know. I'm excited for this though. I feel like at least though, the fact that Ryan Gosling was cast means it's like a real movie. Like, it's not gonna be like a TV movie. Like, it's a real movie with a real budget. And I think it had a lot of the same writers as The Martian, which again, haven't seen, but I've heard it was very like well done. So I feel like they'll execute it well. I am nervous like what's gonna happen with like Rocky. Like, don't really know how that will go in portrayal, but like Arrival did it well. Dune had really good like alien special effects stuff, so like I feel like it's possible. At this point, I feel like it's definitely achievable. So I'm nervous, but I'm eagerly awaiting it. Thank you guys so much for watching and putting up with my weird rambling and theories, and I'm excited to one day see this movie. Please consider liking and subscribing and commenting down below for engagement. So yes, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!